but you don't necessarily have to have a monthly premium paying for a traditional policy that I might not ever use.
So glad you're with us on The Outcome is Income. Brad Johansen with Chance Robinson, Strong Point Financial. So good to be with you, my friend. How are you?
So good to be back. I'm good. How about yourself, Brad?
I'm really good. I'm really good right now. Which kind of leads us into that. We can't beat Father Time. Father Time creeps up on us, and the body changes and things changes. Matter of fact, you want to talk about a statistics that's nasty as we move into retirement? The latest statistics say that 7 out of every 10 over the age of 65 are going to need long-term health care.
Yeah.
7 out of 10 of us, as we move into this, are going to have a problem. That's a financial issue. If we're going, for most people, that may be their number one fear going into retirement. How am I going to pay for health care going into this? You deal with this a lot of the time?
Well, you know, the question that I always have to ask is, does retirement mean not just focusing on my portfolio? You know, a big question around people saying, are they ready for retirement? They think they have to get to some magical number and say, okay, that's
Always
my
about the number.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
And is that all it's relying on? What you have to come through with some of the truths of retirement, and especially discussing healthcare planning around that aspect. Do I have a plan, and have I sat down and planned that out? Like you said, the statistics tell me long-term care is the number one reason for bankruptcy amongst retirees. Why is that? Because nobody plans for it.
They didn't plan for it.
You know, you think about our population here in Florida, right? Statistically, 70% of people over the age of 65 are going to use some form of long-term care in their lifetime. The average stay is 3 years. The average cost is pushing over $100,000 a year.
The average stay in long-term care is 3 years?
Yeah. The last time they done a survey on this was 2014, and the numbers were roughly $92,000 a year for a private room, or maybe 86 for a semi-private room. The last thing you want to do in retirement is to be forced into a situation where you have to share a room with somebody who is not of sound mind because you didn't plan for it correctly. These are realities that people are running into.
Look, you're talking about numbers of people who $90,000 plus are more than many people as they're heading into retirement are making
Correct.
per year.
Correct. And you have to take into the account the reality when I am transitioning into retirement and I'm now going to rely on Medicare. Medicare is not enough. Medicare doesn't cover long-term care. Long-term care, skilled nursing facilities has some aspect, and mostly that's for rehab. But when it comes to long-term care, home health care, intermediate home care, Medicare doesn't cover any of that. You're responsible for all costs when it comes to that. And a big factor that people forget is attachable assets. What is being able to be attached to this situation that I'd have to spin down my assets in order to qualify for help for long-term care? In the state of Florida, if you don't have your own plan, let me enlighten everybody out there. If you don't have a long-term care health plan, there's a plan for you. It's called Medicaid. That's your plan if you don't have your own. However, in order to qualify for Medicaid, you're allowed to have one house, one car, and $2,000 to your name. Anything over that, they're going to make you go through the spin down process and liquidate your estate all the way down to that amount before they will help with anything.
Which sounds terrifying, which is why people are afraid of going into retirement and not knowing exactly what I'm going to do. What you're telling me is there are strategies to try and plan for
100%.
Not having to deal with somebody else's plan for us?
Well, and let me kind of be clear about this. Personally, I am not a giant fan of traditional long-term care insurance.
Because?
I don't like to pay for things that I might not use. I know most people out there, because of statistics, I know most people out there are of the same mindset of me. we're all John Wayne and bulletproof, right? It's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to be part of the 70%. I am pro having a plan to deal with it in case that it comes. I'm just saying traditional long-term care insurance is not the only way to cover it. The reason why I say that is because I know there's tons of other accounts and strategies and things that will cover long-term care in the event that you need it, but you don't necessarily have to have a monthly premium paying for a traditional policy that I might not ever use. I like to know if I'm going to have the coverage. I like to know I'm going to use it. I'm not in the habit of just throwing money down the drain for any reason.
So if you have a strategy now, I think there are financial solutions, especially within life insurance care, that are different than long-term care.
Right.
That kind of have multi-purpose
Correct.
for you right now. Can you take us into some of that?
Yeah, there's different account types. There's life insurance. There could be indexed accounts. There could be, the 7702 accounts. Like there's so many different strategies and different accounts that I have. And I kind of remind people of this. It's like saying my money has to sit somewhere. And I'm always a big proponent of saying, like, especially like IRA money or 401k money or drop programs or whatever that may be, that money you saved up for retirement, I know you're not going to turn it around and take it all out and blow it in the first year of retirement. Number one, you get killed in taxes. But number two, this is what you saved it up for. So my point is, if it has to sit somewhere, where do you let it sit that you get the most benefit from it? If I can sit that pot of money over here and say, hey, with this account, they will cover long-term care if I need it. I don't have to pay a premium for it. That's a benefit of having that type of account. I'm a big fan of utilizing strategies like that to say, hey, I can get the coverage and protect myself in the event that I ever need it, but I don't have to pay a monthly premium on an insurance policy I may never use. So I'm proactive about planning for it. I'm not proactive saying, hey, run out there and buy a traditional long-term care policy. I'm just saying, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it still makes sense. The point that I'm proving is make sure you have a plan to deal with it because 70% of people are going to use it. You look at the population here in the state of Florida, we have a small amount of retirees here, right? Just a few, right? Just a few, right? If 70% of them are going to use some form of long-term care in their lifetime and approximately 10% of them have a plan, what do you think it costs the state to pay for the other 60% of people that go into long-term care?
They're paying for somebody else.
Yeah, the state is paying tremendous amounts. So we actually developed a program in the state of Florida called the Florida Partnership Program. And the Florida Partnership Program was encouraging people to have their own care. So how it works is saying, like, if I need long-term care, something happens and I need long-term care, I'm part of that 70% of people that are going to need it. The state says if you had coverage that will protect you in the event of long-term care, whatever amount that you protect of your assets will keep. You can keep that without going through that spin down process to liquefy your estate down, and the state can still step in and help pay without you spending all your assets. So they're trying to incentivize people to get their own care because it's a big cost on the state. So if you have that opportunity to plan for it correctly, not having to go and buy a traditional policy, but saying, I have coverage that meets the requirement rules from the Florida Partnership Program, why would I not do that and protect the bulk of my asset or my net worth, all of it, if I have the opportunity to, just making the plan right. Nobody in their life worked 30, 40 years of your life to make a long-term care facility the beneficiary of all your hard work.
Well, and that's what you talked about, why this is so different in some of the products, some of the solutions that you now have that are multi-purpose.
Right.
That you say, okay, I think I might be one of the 70%, but what if I'm not? You're talking about keeping your own money or your beneficiaries making sure that they keep this. This is a program that lasts and stays where you want it to go.
Exactly. And there's several, like I said, there's several different ways to accomplish that. I remind people all the time, like, you got your multimillionaires and billionaires of our society. They protect themselves correctly. And it's not that they know all of the answers. The difference is they get a team of advisors who know how to put stuff together to do what they need to do. So I have to remind people, it's not just the multimillionaires and billionaires that have access to teams of advice that can do what's in your best interest. Because trust me, the government already has a plan for all of your assets. Do you want to work off of their plan or your plan? Which one do you think is going to be more beneficial to you? So my point is, you have access to the same advice. And the reason why you're looking at an advisor who looks at this from a retirement specialist or, a holistic advisor that includes all of these key details is because we're going to have inside information that says, hey, there's ways to cover this and there's ways to put this together to protect yourself without you having to, be insurance poor, spending all this monthly premiums on things. There's plenty of ways and strategies to put that together. But I have to get the advice to know and even know the questions to ask. I'm going to know some questions to ask that maybe people don't know to ask. So those are the important reasons on why I want to focus on having a plan that talks about all of these different scenarios. Healthcare planning is a key part of financial planning. You could have the best financial portfolio in the world. You get 30, 40, 50, 60% returns on your own consistently. That's great. And a healthcare situation will tear it completely apart. A long-term care situation puts you at complete jeopardy and risk. So if I haven't planned out all of the nuances first, before that, I'm doing myself an injustice for sure.
Chance says he's got inside information. Why? Because he has the perspective of doing it over and over again. It's calling in the experts to say, I'd like to be part of the inside information, so why don't you get an insider review? A complimentary insider review that puts a plan together. Are you concerned that you're maybe one of those statistics that may need long-term care down the road? Don't wait any longer. Make the call, 855-348-3018, to set up your own complimentary insider review. Let's make sure that's part of the plan so that you have an understanding of how your plan pays for you instead of having somebody else make a plan for you. Make the call. Let's put together a review for you and make sure that you're confident in where you're going. We'll be right back.